Hey everybody, 4Gun Guy here. This is another video in my 3-gun series where we're talking about the equipment, the guns, and the procedures for 3-gun. This video is going to be focused on the shotgun. What I want to do is kind of take you through my journey of starting with a stock shotgun, making some modifications to it, both through the purchase and installation of accessories, and through actual work that I did on things like the loading port, shooting this gun for a couple years, 3 years, and then moving on to a more packaged shotgun that was put together by experts. We'll talk about the price differences, some things you want to look for, and what goes into a 3-gun shotgun. Let's get started. Let's start off looking at the journey of my first 3-gun shotgun. Before we get started, let me say that both of these guns have chamber flags in them. They are unloaded. I am going to be using some dummy ammunition. This is that 3G JM dummy rounds, which these are really good to use, by the way. I'll put a link to them down below. But there's no other live shotgun ammunition in this room whatsoever, so we should be good there. Well, I started with a stock Mossberg 930 shotgun. I did a little bit of research. Again, I was just getting into 3-guns, so I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I wanted to make sure I was going to like it first. So I decided on the Mossberg 930. This ran about $500. Then I did some upgrades to this. So some of the upgrades that you're going to want to do to a stock shotgun are things like a stage saver. This is a little gizmo that you put a shell in here, and if you run your shotgun dry, you can very quickly use that shell and have one more shot. Little things like that. Enlarged bolt handle, right? This is something that you're going to want to look at, because when you're in competition, you really want to grab on this and be able to either rack around or however you need to manage that bolt. Bolt release. This is this right here, this little silver thing, and generally on a shotgun they're kind of just smallish and they're hard to get your hand on, your thumb on. So these are very tactile. You're going to want a magazine tube extension. That's this piece right here. These will generally come with like a 5-round tube or a 4-round tube. This tube gives you 12 rounds in the tube and 1 round in the chamber for a total of 13 rounds. Now, if you're going to run open 3-gun, then you can use that. If you're not going to run open, then you're generally relegated to 9 rounds. So 8 in the tube and 1 in the chamber. So just think about things like that. Never hurts to get a longer tube. You just can't load it all the way up depending on how you're going to shoot. And then things like, I did some work myself on this. So if you look at this right here, you can see where I did some modifications to the loading port, right? I took my Dremel tool and dremeled this out. I made sure I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to do that. But yeah, that will help you load easier when you're loading the shotgun. And then some other things, like I got a different lifter on there, and then I bought some parts from a company called OR 3-Gun, OR, the number 3 in gun. Things like a spacer tube, forearm retainer, which is this little silver thing, you probably can't really see it right there, and this bolt release, as I mentioned earlier. So with all of that being said, and a few more internal parts there, I was then into this gun for another about $370, bringing the total price of this gun to about $870 for 3-gun. Now, I didn't do all those upgrades at once. I did those over a period of about 2.5 years, as I wanted to kind of get the gun in a little better performing shape. So I did all those upgrades, and you know what? Still didn't shoot as good as I really wanted it to shoot. It was kind of a waste of money, if you want my honest opinion. I could only shoot high brass rounds out of this thing. It was just a little finicky on some of the lower brass shells. I was trying to find that velocity that was going to work in it, but in the end, it was just those high brass shells that it really liked. I didn't mind that. I don't mind the extra kick. It's just that I wanted something that would run some different shells if I needed to. Let's go on to how I made a decision to move to the next level. All right, so I ran the Mossberg 930 with all the upgrades on it for about 2.5 years, and then I finally made a decision that I wanted to go to something else, and I started doing some research. And I'm going to show you that research here in a minute. I ended up at the MOA Precision Patrick Kelly Signature Edition Stoeger P3K shotgun. Man, that's a lot to say. But if you go to their website, I'll put a link to it there. You'll see this gun. Now, in my research, I had a budget set. My budget was about $1,200. I didn't want to go too far over that, if at all possible. And this gun fit that bill. This gun came in at $1,100, and that was with all of the upgrades that they did to the gun. Stoeger is a wholly owned subsidiary of Benelli, which is owned by Beretta. So I felt kind of comfortable with Stoeger being in the Benelli family, and people that I talked to said, yeah, a lot of what Benelli does to their high-end guns trickles down into Stoeger. Read the reviews on the Stoeger, just the M3000, it got good reviews. Yes, there's always some issues with every shotgun, right? But overall, the M3000 really got some good reviews. So I did my selection criteria and selected this one. Let's go ahead and pause and look at some other options that are out there for something in this range. And I'm even going to throw in the Benelli M2 with the Terran tactical upgrades to it. So let's pause now and take a look at that. Then we'll come back. Well, when we look at the comparison here, we can see that really what I did is I looked at the Stoeger M3000, the Beretta, the Mossberg, and the Remington. And I looked at the base prices. So $600 on the Stoeger, $1,100 on the Beretta, $675 Mossberg, and $900 on the Versamax. I also threw in the Benelli, but really, if your budget's around $1,200 to $1,500, then the Benelli isn't even in there. Then what I said was, look, if you upgraded these stock rifles, then let's just use $350 as the general upgrade. It could be more, it could be less, but I had to choose something. So I used the $350 that I did for the 930 to upgrade these guns. So I added $350 to each. And then I also threw in any complete packages. So like the MOA Precision Patrick Kelly Edition, Hayes Custom Guns does a custom Beretta 1301. I couldn't find anything on the JM Pro or the Versamax. And then of course you've got the Terran Tactical on the Benelli M2, which is $2,900. So if you look at aftermarket parts and all that stuff, all of them have good aftermarket parts. You can get parts for all of these and upgrades for all of these guns. So at the very bottom of this list, we have the base price again, and then we have the base price plus the manual upgrades if you upgraded it yourself. And then we finally have the package prices. And this is really what I did a few years ago, looking at the MOA. And I came up to the conclusion that the Stoeger M3000 with that Patrick Kelly package from MOA Precision was just the way for me to go. So it's going to depend on the research you do and what's out there today. Well, I hope the comparison was good for you. Those were just a few options, and they're not, that list was not exhaustive. I just wanted to throw some in there that did have packages, and one that didn't. I think it was the Versamax that really didn't. Some of those guns come pretty much ready out of the box, so just do your research on those. Let's talk about some of the things that you're going to want to look for if you're looking at a package or if you're looking at doing the work yourself. So for example, on this Patrick Kelly edition, some of the things that they put in the package are the loading port modifications. So, you know, they do a lot of work here in the loading port area, grinding it down. Now, they use a CNC machine, so it's not the 4-gun guy here with my Dremel tool like I did on my old shotgun, kind of half, you know what, doing it. They undercut the trigger guard here, and I'll show you this closer up in a minute, where there's a groove here that the shell is going to follow very easily into the tube, and that's a big deal. They do things like a Benelli extractor and spring. That's a big deal because, again, it's a Benelli part. They're putting it in a Stoeger shotgun, so I feel good about that. Terran Tactical hammer spring, which is another nice innovation that they put into this. They adjust the trigger group for 4 to 5.5 pound trigger pull. They polish the extractor. They do a lot of polishing on this, so it's very smooth, and it's like you've shot a couple hundred rounds through it, so it's very smooth. All this other stuff, right? We've got the magazine tube extension. We've got the clamp that comes with it. They do a spiral cut space, what this is called the spacer tube. They do a spiral cut here, so it allows air to circulate in this area, because sometimes if you have a solid tube and you're in like the humidity of Houston, Texas, this can kind of form up some moisture, and that's not good for everything. So let's look a little closer at the trigger guard cut and their loading port mods. All right, well, these are two pretty important things, and I hope this is going to be in focus for us here. So I'll hold it kind of right here because this camera tends to want to focus on my face. But this is the trigger guard cut, and you can see, hopefully, that you can see this groove here. And this really helps the shell, helps guide the shell into the tube. This lifter is a really nice lifter, and trust me, if you don't have the right lifter in here, your thumb is going to come out like raw hamburger after a match. So it's all of this stuff that really helps. Their work on the loading port, I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to kind of come out here. They do a really nice job with the cutting here. This is all CNC machined. And this little, you don't think much about it, but I'm telling you, this little ramp right here is another thing that really saves your thumb. So if you are loading, as I said earlier, this is going to come in, slide right along that groove, and right into the tube, right? If you're going to load deuces, 2 shells at a time, right? You're going to grab your shell out of your belt, and I hope this focuses. The shell's going to come in, and you're loading. Okay, and you can load quads as well, so you can have 4 shells and load those. I'm not going to demonstrate that. But my point is, what they've done here is probably worth all of the money for this gun. It really is. It saves a lot. You're not doing it yourself, and it just makes all the difference in the world. If you think about it, I spent $870 on that Mossberg 930 with between the gun and all the upgrades. This gun was $1,100. So for $230 more, I could have just gone to something like this, and I would have saved myself $870. Now, that's a good backup gun in case I ever need it. Something goes drastically wrong with this, but still, I would have saved a lot of money. Well, I hope that helped. Let's go to final thoughts. Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory final thoughts. I mean, let's just kind of recap. Number one, for about $300 less than that, $230 more, I could have just gotten a package gun that was probably going to run everything I needed it to run. This thing runs like a champ. It runs most everything I've put through it. I don't need to buy that expensive high brass anymore. I can use different loads in it. Number two, if you're at a match and you're looking into getting other shotguns, as I said with the pistol review, see if you can borrow someone's shotgun and try it out. Ask the RSO and the match director if you can do that. If they let you do it, take it into one of the bays and shoot it. See how it shoots for you. That way you can try different shotguns. Three, set your budget. You know, I set my budget for this about $1,200. Came in right at that, a little under with shipping and all that stuff. But set your budget, right? Don't look at a Terran Tactical Benelli M2 for $2,900 if your budget is $1,200. Number four, if you have a shotgun like that Mossberg 930, you may have one of those laying around the house, right? That might have been a shotgun you bought a couple years ago. Go on YouTube, see how easy it is to upgrade that. Maybe it's just adding a tube extension with the right spring and the right follower, and you can shoot some matches with it. And that leads into number five, which is what I said on my pistol video. Make sure how you want to enjoy 3-gun. Do you just want to have fun? Then maybe that Mossberg 930 with that tube extension and a couple adjustments, maybe $200 worth of stuff, is going to run great for you for the rest of your 3-gun career. Or you want to move up, you've gotten better, you've known how to shoot the stages, what to think about. And again, I'm going to put another video up here about 3-gun stages, what to think about, and how I've shot them with some of my critique of myself in shooting them. But really, again, it's important that you understand how to shoot the stage. The equipment comes second. You need to be able to figure it out and say, yep, I shot that stage great. Now, if I only had maybe a better shotgun, I could shoot that stage 10 seconds faster, right? That's where then you can start looking at something like this and move on up. So, I hope this helped you. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this. I will leave you with this last thing. To me, the shotgun is the trickiest and the finickiest gun out of all three in 3-gun. My pistol runs flawlessly. My rifle, the one that I built myself for 3-gun, that thing is, it runs like a champ. It never fails me. And the shotgun is what I've always had the biggest issue with. Now, not this one since I bought it, but when I did that to the Mossberg 930, my first, I always had issues with it. And you don't want to jam in the middle of a stage. It's not fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate all your views, your likes, and your subscriptions. I really appreciate those. Until next time, there should be another video coming out in this series on my rifle. And until that one comes out, shoot straight.